Hello all, my name is Inka Saarela and I am here with Colombian author Sergio Sanchez. Welcome, Sergio.
Thank you. Thank you for the invitation. I hope we can talk about the book and some literature and maybe some facts about Colombia.
Yes, your book was recently translated into Finnish by the name Sadepiiskaa asfalttia. It was published by Aviador. Can you tell in a nutshell, what is your book about?
Yes, to make like a quick story, it's a compilation of short stories that happen in the road that connects the inner part of Colombia with the Caribbean coast. So there are like many characters, many conflicts, and also I try to touch many social issues of Colombian today's society.
Yes, what made you write it and what inspired you?
Well, there was always a question like the artistic origin of the question is the life of the people in general. You are like, this is some kind of a road book in a way, because it also comes from the question that you have when you are driving in these long highways. You need to understand that Colombia is like 5 times bigger than Finland, so when you go to the Caribbean coast, it takes you the whole day almost. If you are in the center of Colombia, because if you are like in the south of Colombia, it can be like 2 days or something. So there is always this question because Colombia society and Colombia like scenery changes like every 100 kilometers. Everything is just different because we have deserts, we have lakes, we have mountains, we have snow peaks, we have plains, and we have like rainforest as well. So you are all the time looking to many different people that are trying to, in a way, fight against nature to live at some place. And you are always wondering what's the life of these people about, because we also have this kind of inner conflict, some kind of a civil war in Colombia going on since the beginning of the Republic almost.
Yeah, could it be said that your book is some kind of political statement?
I'm not so sure about a political statement in itself, but all art is political. I mean, you cannot try to write a book or paint a picture and at the end don't have like anything to say to your own society or to the world in a way. So at the end, every artistic like act it turns to be political.
Yeah, that is true. Could you tell something about your relationship with Finland? Because it has something to do why you started writing in the first place.
Well, okay, yes. When I was 16, like 20 years ago, yeah, 20 years ago, I came to Finland as an exchange student. I was in Jyväskylä. And at the time, Finland was like, coming from Colombia to Finland was like making this kind of leap into the future, because everything was like really different. Like the society itself and the technology itself was like really different. So all those kind of things make you start thinking more about like creativity and like writing, but also the winter, that time that you have to be inside of your house because outside is like really cold and it's snowing or whatever. Then you start like reading a lot, books from the library, because you have a really good library system, and also like 20 years ago it was really good. And then you just start to like fall in love with literature in a way, and then you start to think that, okay, maybe I can write also my own stories and talk about the things that concerns me.
Yeah, that is interesting. Finnish is the only language your book has been translated into. How did it happen?
Well, it was like a series of good encounters in a way. It started, I had this is like the version of the book in Spanish. I had this as a souvenir for my friends here in Finland and for my host family, like 2 years ago, and they suggested me to look for translators in Finnish. And then I start like this series of emails, and I start like connecting with many Finnish translators, also like from the old school of translators, which suggested me this particular publishing house because Aviador publishes like many works in Spanish. And then they just liked the book and they just decided to publish it.
Yeah, that is great. I feel like knowing something about Colombia and its past is essential for understanding your book. What is something people should know about your country?
Well, there are many things you should know about Colombia because at least the perception that you have when you have an encounter with somebody in Europe, the first encounter when you say you are from Colombia is automatically they associate Colombia with like, let's say 3 things maybe, like coffee, football players, and drug trafficking. They are always talking about narcos or Pablo Escobar or these kind of things. But that's a really, like, it's some kind of a really bad sip of what Colombia is, because Colombia is a country, like, as I was saying, is 5 times bigger than Finland, and we have been a republic in some way since like 200 years ago, a little bit more. But we have this kind of past like all America has, but we have more complicated issues because we used to be a colony of Spain, and then we had this kind of freedom. I mean, I'm also doing this kind of fast synopsis about Colombia. We have our freedom because there were these ideas from French Revolution all along America. And also like United States Revolution helped a little bit, but it's in a way that was some kind of change of power. It's like everybody was just trying to take the power from Spain and Portugal crown, and then the new kind of masters, to say in some kind of way, were like France and England and later United States of America. So we have been in this kind of process of decolonization that I don't believe it has been like well done, like at any point, and we are striking now with more contemporary problems like excess of information and technology and drug trafficking, which is a really huge business that I cannot see how you can stop that, because it's like a huge business, and it's a business where Colombia puts like the prime matter and the dead people and the conflict, because we have been in wars because of that like 60 years almost, and the money, the big money stays like in New York or in Spain or in some other parts, because it's like Colombia as a country is not getting rich from drug trafficking. So we have like all the bad part and not the benefits, in a way, to say.
Yes, let's discuss more about the themes of your book. The world you describe seems cruel and hopeless. Colombian civil war and violence are present in your stories. Can it be said that Colombians suffer from collective trauma?
I believe, yes, you can say that, because in a way we are a society that it's been like, in some kind of way, like kidnapped by its own history. So we have this like never-ending conflict, and we have all those ramifications that leads to many other problems in society. And it's one on the top of the other, and nobody's like healing anything. Because as soon as you are trying to make some kind of process, like the peace process, for example, there always come like a bigger problem. Now we have this kind of right-wing government, which is kind of cruel and kind of like denier of all the violence and massacres in Colombia. So we have this kind of problem. The society is never going to heal in that way, because, and also we have this kind of like long tradition of Catholicism that is not that helpful in many ways, because, well, that kind of like fanatic expression of religion never have helped any society like in the history of humanity.
Yeah, you also handled poverty in your stories. The Economic Commission for Latin America and the Caribbean reported that 37.5% of Colombians lived below the poverty line at the end of 2020. Inequality is striking. Why there is so much poverty, and can anything change the situation?
Well, as a general answer is like inequality is just a product of the capitalism system. And that's not just a Colombian problem, that's a world problem. So it's like all the benefits of capitalism resides like, I mean, they stay in one part of the chain. And they can maintain that because the rest of the chain is like in that kind of situation, in a poor situation. So it has to be like some kind of global pact to end inequality. Because, I mean, of course, Colombia has like its own problems, like as a society or as a nation, but it's like you cannot heal those problems if the problem is worldwide.
Yes, that is true. So, in one of your stories, there is a couple who can't have children. They seek help from an Indian village and leave the place with 2 children. I did some research and found out there are over 500,000 orphans in Colombia. Does stuff like this happen? Can people buy children?
Well, I think in a straight answer, you could say that maybe that can happen, but not because it's like a common practice, but because you don't have presence of the state in all the territory. And when the state is not doing presence in the whole of the territory, the people is just by themselves, like in that kind of Wild West, and you can find many things that can happen in that Wild West situation. You know, like to make the comparison with United States Wild West, like the cowboy movies or whatever. So there is lots of poverty, and when there is poverty and misery, people just make desperate decisions. So you can all find that kind of things. And yes, of course, there are many orphans, and you can find like many people that have been adopted in Colombia. Like, it's like something that happens here in Finland as well, that somebody tells you like, oh, I know somebody who adopted some child from Colombia. I mean, we're not talking that they bought them or something like that. We're talking like a regular process of adoption. But of course, in Colombia, we have like our own levels of misery. That can happen, that you are in a really, really, really poor place of the country, and somebody just has the idea like, hey, doctor or engineer, take my son and give him a good life or whatever, because it's desperation.
Yeah. Colonialism is still present in Colombia. Even the name of your country is originated from Christopher Columbus, the guy who opened the way for the widespread colonization of the Americas. So, how does the colonial past show in the society and in your stories?
Well, in my stories you can tell that it's a fractured society, that there are many differences between the people who live actually in the countryside and the city people and the Afro community or the indigenous community, because it is what it is. I mean, in Colombia you can find still like that kind of colonial syndrome, that like rich people in Colombia, they are still wanting to have that kind of imperial past, that when Colombia was a colony from Spain, they are like very proud to go to Europe and to have relatives in Europe, and they're trying to find European blood in their blood, and those kind of things. That's just colonial syndrome. That's nothing else like that. And also you can find those expressions in racism and in that kind of, I don't know the word in English, but in Spanish it's aporophobia. It's that kind of thing that you have for poor people, that you just don't want them. You want them, okay, it's that kind of way to act, to say like, yeah, no, I don't mind, poor people, but yeah, let's just put them somewhere when we cannot see them. That's not, I mean, that's something like to have a crook mind in a way.
Yeah, there is one scene in your book where a woman gets raped. That made me think about the role and presence of women in Colombian society. Their opportunities probably vary depending on where they live and what is their socioeconomic background, but can you comment something about this topic?
Well, it is a huge and complicated topic. But yes, I mean, the thing is, if you think, I mean, I don't even want to sound like an ally or something, but if you think about the role of women in the world, women are always having this kind of bad situation like everywhere. Perhaps you cannot notice that in a place like Finland or in more progressive countries, but there's still some gap between this kind of men and women situation. It's not that I don't know the problem, it's just I don't know how to express it well in English. But the thing is, of course, you have this kind of problem in Colombia because there is this presence of, like a huge presence of this macho culture. Still, of course, because it's what I'm telling you, the problem with religion, for example, or Catholic religion or Christian religion, is these have been like historically misogynistic in a way religions. I'm not saying everybody, I'm not saying all of them, 100% of the people, but it's still present in many concepts. So you can see that reflex in the society as well. And of course, it has to do also with inequality. It's not the same to be a rich woman in Colombia than to be a poor woman in Colombia. I mean, a rich woman in Colombia is going to have some problems and some issues, to say something, but the poor woman in Colombia is going to have a really, really problematic life because of how society works.
Yeah, characters of your book seem often powerless in front of ruthless society, and in some way they have accepted how things are. Do you see anything good in Colombia?
Yeah, the animals and the plants and the rivers and the mountains and all the scenery. It's very beautiful. But when we talk about the social compounds, of course there are nice people there. But this is the problem. When the concepts are bigger than the good in the people itself, it's very difficult to just try to avoid those like big concepts like religion, like colonialism, like even this kind of macho culture, and put them aside. Is like you are talking to good people who are carrying also all those kind of concepts in their minds. So they are good until the things get like complicated in a way. So that's a very problematic because what I always say about Colombia is, of course, there is good. You can find like really good people. I consider myself a good person, but and I know many good people. But the thing is, like, we are like as a society, we need to go to therapy or something. We really need to take some care of ourselves as a society because otherwise it's never going to change. And it's what I'm telling you. The problem is this never-ending war in many aspects. At the end, you have like a really fractured and unhealthy society because you are never solving any problems. So you are just carrying, and then you have some blowing of steam now and then. We have these peaks of high violence and then some periods of tranquility. If you do like the research, you could tell like 20 years ago when I came to Finland, we were also in this kind of peace process that was a failure and was like many dead people, many kidnapped people, and people was like advising all the world like don't go to Colombia or whatever. But then we had like a more calm period, but then we discovered that the government is actually nowadays all that government after the peace process, the first peace process 20 years ago, they are being investigated because there were like extrajudicial assassinations, like 6,000 people like disappeared or dead. So it's like it's never ending, and that's a real problem.
Yeah, that is sad. How has the literary tradition affected your writing, and how would you position yourself on this tradition?
Well, of course you have like, in Colombia you have Gabriel Garcia Marquez, which is like the greatest figure of literature. It's our Nobel Prize and everything, so you cannot like skip him. You have to go to Garcia Marquez books, you have to understand the literature, but also like contemporary authors, because we have like many authors. And I believe in Latin America's tradition of literature, there is always this necessity of tell the stories like in a more maybe journalistic way sometimes, and also with this kind of anthropologically view, because we are like aware of our position in history and like in the actual time. So we need to like make this kind of statements like, hey, look, this is what's happening there, because we know that media, like regular media, is not doing much to show what's happening here. And of course we have these kind of governments that are like, allegedly they are democracies, but sometimes they are like really authoritarian and really like totalitarians. So they are giving wrong information to the rest of the world. So in the art is the only way we can like express what we are feeling about.
Yeah, and also probably your own background studying sociology shows in your stories.
Well, history, actually it was history.
Okay.
Yes. Yes, so I studied history and I studied journalism. So in that mixture you need to like connect with people and also be this kind of bridge between like real people to the rest of the world. And also, well, fiction writing is what I like to do more, because sometimes people just don't want like the things just straight away. They want stories in some kind of way.
Yeah, recommend your book. Why Finnish people should read it?
Well, I think in a way because, and this is not just like trying to brag, but it's like, I believe the stories are like well written, like just like basic well written. And the thing is, the topics can be like interesting because you can connect and you can be like in other place connecting with these people that represent real people in Colombia. You know, because of course these are characters that are made up, but are made up based on a reality that's happening there. Like,
Yeah, that wasn't bragging. I agree with you.
okay.
Yeah. Thank you for the interview.
Thank you. And thank you for being here and listening.
Yeah, and Sergio will be signing the books if anybody wants.
Thank you.